Okay, here we go then. The last race of the day. It's all to play for. Race 2. It all comes down to the next 14 laps. And away they go. Now, and there's Darren spinning out as well. Darren, there's contact there. Push Kieran wide. Oh, but it's gone off. What's going on? Shane's also there in the BMW. Oh, nearly loses it. Kieran's going to have to slow down. No, he's got too much. It's Josh here, and he is leading. This is fantastic for Josh. Oh, a bit of a love tap. And Josh. Oh my God. Who's going to take it? I think it's Darren. I think it's going to be Rob. Rob gets it. He's actually on the grass. This isn't good for Tom. And he's made the move. Look at that. Through Eau Rouge. Oh, that's Mike. Mike's gone off. Oh, Craig sideways. Big time. Is it going to be enough? No, Sam takes it and takes the title ahead of Tom. Let's take a look at our grid for race 2 here then at Nurburgring. Craig Kellett is on the front row of the grid in the Elliott Racing Nissan GTR. Next to him is Darren Parker in the first of the Team Parker Renault Megane. On the second row is Sam Parker in the other Renault Megane Team Parker, and Tom Foster in the K-Tech Racing Subaru WRX. On row 3 it's an all Nissan row of Harry Cook and Mike Kuipers. On row 4 it's a Lexus RCF of Gary Black next to Josh Hardy in the Renault Megane. On row 5 we've got Kieran Thomas in the K-Tech Racing Subaru WRX next to Rob Pellet in the Elliott Racing Nissan GTR, and on the back row of the grid is Mark Nichol in the Renault Megane next to James Dawson in the BMW M4. Race 2 then, here at Nurburgring. On the front row of the grid we've got Craig Kellett and Darren Parker. Can Darren get past Craig and take a win? And away they go. Tom gets a good start, and as do the two Nissans of Mike and Harry. So they all bundle into the first corner. It's quite tight, and there's a bit of a dive there by James Dawson in the BMW. Up to 7th already. There's Mike getting it slightly wide in that corner. Sam's gone in and he's actually hit Mike, and contact between James and Sam there. So it's a bit unavoidable by James, but that's pushed Sam further down to 7th, nearly 8th now. On board with Josh, who's got Tom and Darren in front of him. And Tom's gone in the inside and he's got up ahead of Darren just, but he's on the inside for the next corner. Oh, that's Josh running wide, and Tom goes wide as well, and there's Mark. Mark's hit Tom, so absolute chaos here at Nurburgring, and we think that was all down to James, who went way too quick into the corner there. So Tom has gone down to 8th, Darren's down to 10th. It's just gone up to 9th now, just ahead of Harry, who's having a bit of a battle there with Josh, who's sideways. We've got a replay to have a look at that to figure out what exactly happened. Let's have a look at it now. Let's take a look at see what happened with James then, and it looks like a similar set of circumstances. James just goes way too fast into the corner, hits Josh into Darren, and actually goes and wide and hits Tom. So yeah, it slows down, look, but the damage was done before that. So looking at Darren here, and all of a sudden there's Josh, and the both of them, they spin out. Darren finds his way through the gravel and continues on. Let's go on board with Josh, and as you can see Tom was just ahead of Darren there, having a good battle, and then in the background, bang, there's James. Even Rob goes off. I'm not sure if that was related or if he went on his own. now we're on board with Mark Nicol in the Renault Megane, and you'll see ahead, there's the initial contact, the two spin out there, then Tom loses it on the gravel and smash straight into Tom Ghost Mark, but unfortunately there's nothing he could have done with the speed that he was going. Lastly, let's have a look on board with Tom. Darren goes past him. Yeah, Tom gets hit twice. Hits the gravel, spins round, and then a big hit by Mark. So it was James, unfortunately, who was part of that, and so again the stewards will look at that. It's not good for James, who in actual fact this is his second accident, and in actual fact it's the same corner as race 1, so James may be reprimanded again for what happened, no doubt, and I don't think Darren, Tom or Josh or even Mark will be best pleased. So up at the front then is Craig Kellett. He's on hard tyres though, so no doubt Mike, who is behind him, will come up to possibly overtake him, and Mike, who is on the softs, has got a great opportunity up with him here to potentially take his first win. Mike, who is really doing well in the independents so far for season 2, showing his intentions to try and take the title away from Josh, who has just not quite had the results he's needed so far. Down in third is Kieran, so he's managed to get his way through all of the contact earlier on to come into third, just ahead of Mark, who's in fourth, James, who is in fifth, and Gary here is in sixth, so Gary's just behind James. Again, Gary doing pretty well in the Lexus so far. It's a little bit heavy compared to the rest of the cars, but seems to be showing some pace and is quite competitive here at Nurburgring. So just behind Gary is Sam and Tom. Further down we've got Josh, Darren and Rob, and at the back we've got Harry. On board with Rob now, who's gone on the outside of Josh, and that's a great move to get ahead. So Rob trying to get himself further up the grid, get some more points. And Rob has said after race 1 that he's just not got the setup right for the Nissan at the moment. He's still finding his way into how it handles compared to Craig, who has just got it locked up and already is on the pace, winning races and winning the Drivers' Championship so far. On lap 3 then of 11, on board with Mark, so this is good for Mark, who struggled in race 1. Now Mark was involved in the contact earlier, but luckily it hasn't affected his race too much. Mark is got it under control. He's got James behind him, with Gary not that too far behind as well. All of these guys are on the softs, so they want to take the opportunity to get as high a result as possible, get the points in the bag, whilst the front runners from race 1 struggle on their hard tyres. And when you look at it that way, in actual fact, we have had a pass for the lead, so the lead is now in the hands of Mike, as we expected, and Kieran is now looking to get past Craig. Now Craig is doing really well here for being on the hard tyres, whilst Tom, Darren and Sam all struggle at the back. To be honest though, they were all involved in a bit of an incident earlier, whereas Craig was way too far up ahead and didn't even know what was going on. Back on board with Mark as we watch Kieran and Craig fight it out here for second position, and James is now hot on the back of Mark, potentially looking to get past him. Kieran up ahead, as you can see, is using all the road, and he is on the back of Craig big time, really putting him under pressure. But all the time that they're battling is allowing Mark here, as you can see, to get up and potentially get past Kieran, so it's slowing them up a bit. And if anything, Craig is now acting like a bottleneck. This is the cork in the bottle, stopping everyone to getting past, slowing them all up, defending well, but well, a bit of a tap there from Mark, slightly unsettles Kieran, but the natural fact leads. Let's let James get ahead of Mark into fourth now. So Kieran goes past Craig into second position. Craig is the last one on the podium in third now. James could be pushing for a podium position here, and this is great for James, who unfortunately has had the a bit of contact there again from James, so this isn't good, and he loses it. Now that's allowed Mark to go ahead of Craig, and has allowed Gary to get ahead of James. So although Gary has dropped back a little bit there, James now on the inside of Craig and goes past for fourth position. So James is in the thick of it here. On board with Craig, he's going to try and get past James again. Oh, bit of a tap there, and I think that's a reminder to James that Craig doesn't like to be pushed. Luckily, I think he got away with it. That's Craig falling down now in fifth position on the hard tyres, struggling, and you can really see it. And he's now under threat by Gary. So Gary looking to get past. Further down, Josh is on his own, with Sam behind and Tom not too far behind him. So this mid-pack race is really hotting up now. They're all fighting for that podium, as Mike is absolutely running away with it. Harry's really struggling on the hard tyres here, but still doing okay with the points. On board with Mike, and look how far ahead he is. On to lap 6. He's got the track to himself, drifting round a corner. So Kieran's still in second. Mark is now going to be pushing for another position, and there's a three-way almost into the first chicane between Gary, Craig and Josh here. So Josh is now a part of this and is involved in fifth position. Bit of a push there by Gary. So Gary's up on the inside of Josh. Josh goes back up with the inside, gets past Gary again. So Josh and Gary having a tussle now. Gary goes really wide. It's all got under control a little bit now. So Josh is now behind James, looking to build his way into the top positions. Josh has been here before, so he's not It's not unusual to see him fighting up in the podiums. Nearly took his first win on season 1 at Spa, which was just stripped from him, stolen from him. That's sideways action. There's contact there again, yet again by James. So that's allowed Gary to go past in the Lexus ahead of Josh into 5th position. Josh drops down to 6th, and Craig now drops down to 7th behind all of these. A bit of a push there by Josh. So there's a lot of contact there, and Gary's giving it just as good back, and there we go. Well, I'm not surprised that that happened between Josh and Gary. Josh will not be happy, but to be honest, it looked like Josh had done just as bad earlier. Let's have a little look at replay and see what happened here. Let's have a look at the onboard then with Josh. Yeah, there's the push. Tries to go on the outside of Gary. Bit of a tussle, and then a push back. So Josh down to 7th after that, and I imagine the both of them may be going to the race stewards afterwards to discuss what happened there. So further up, Craig gains another position after that tussle, up to 6th. Gary now behind James, and James has just held on to this 4th for a little while. This is positive, especially the two of these are racing in single car entries with the only 2 cars on the grid that are not duplicated. One BMW, one Lexus. So not to say that they are underdogs and they're at a disadvantage, it's just that they're the only cars being used. Well, Gary sideways off the track into the wall, so he's going to lose a position there to Craig, and really struggling to get the back end straight there. And Gary unfortunately did something similar on race 1 where he lost the back end after he got onto the grass, so commentator's curse unfortunately there. When you say that someone's doing well, all of a sudden they're not. So Rob now has got ahead of Tom. Tom is struggling down in 10th. Tom has got Darren behind him. And Tom got 4th in race 1, so a 10th position is going to get him just a few points, and as much as that's similar to at the moment looking like Sam and Darren, the thing to look at really is the fact that Craig is much further up in 6th, which he's going to still score pretty high on the hards. We're on lap 8 of 11, so here we are on board with Craig just ahead of Josh. Just behind Josh, sorry. Things are settled now after a real tussle in the midfield earlier on. Further up then, James still pushing, and Mark is just behind Kieran now, looking like he could take a push for that 2nd position. Now Mark has, oh whoa, and that was a looked like a potential corner cut, and that's actually allowed James to get past. So James is now ahead. Here is Mike again onto lap 9, and as you can see, again, still miles ahead. Oh no, and he's reset, so that's very interesting. So that's actually now gonna allow Kieran to be not too far behind, so Kieran could push for the win now. So that was a reset there by Mike, who just seemed to cut the corner just a little bit too early. Kieran still yet to get his first win. He's had a good couple of podium results, but still yet to take his first win in the FeckWrest touring cars. So Mark now behind James. And to get a podium on his second ever race would be fantastic for James. But don't forget, he's going to have that potential penalty looming behind him all the time. So as I say, things have settled down now. So Gary in 7th, just behind Craig, who is still doing well in 6th, sorry. And there's a battle here going on between Rob and Sam. So Sam's struggling because of the hard tyres, but still ahead of Darren and Tom. So it's going to be positive for Sam in some sense, but Rob gets past Sam fairly easily there. Rob is on the softs. Sam doesn't look like he wants to give up, so he could fight to get that 8th back. Fight here between Tom and Darren, so Darren's actually got past Tom now. There's a fight all the way down the grid, whether it's at the top or down the bottom. Darren goes wide. Look at the difference in racing lines as they go around that corner. Side by side. Tom's on the outside. Darren's got him. I think it might stick this, but again, Tom doesn't want to give up. Looking to put the pressure back onto Darren to see if he can make a mistake and get back past again, because all these points are crucial. It's a 10-race season, so it's still early days, only round 2, but the smallest of results and points matter when it comes down to the final few races. It could just be a matter of points that win the title, as it was in season 1 between Tom and Sam, just 2 points. Continuing on with this race with Tom and Darren then. Great racing, they're giving each other room. Tom's got a little bit more pace and he's got on the inside, but he's taken a very different line and he actually goes wide. He's on the grass, so that's going to allow Darren to get past potentially. Tom runs wide again, really trying to get grips with those hard tyres. Coming down onto the final lap then. The leader is still Mike. And let's have a look here. Now Josh has got into 3rd position, just ahead of James. So James has lost his podium. Josh is now behind Kieran. And Mark is very close behind James in his mirrors. So it's not finished here up at the front of the grid. The podium positions have not yet been decided as they keep changing. Now Josh is on the inside of Kieran. Yeah, that's it. Robbins Racing's got round on the inside. James is on the outside there of Kieran, so Kieran's got back on the outside of Josh, and he has to go behind him. So Josh is now in second, Kieran is in third, James is in fourth, and Mark is in fifth still. But James is off into the gravel, and that's allowed maybe Mark to get past. You can see Mark is going to build the speed, but and James goes wide. So James is just losing his momentum here, losing the routine. Gets it under control. But ultimately it was a dominant win here by Mike Kuipers, who's going to take his first ever win in the Nissan GTR. Mike takes the win here at race 2 for Nurburgring. Josh takes second, Kieran takes third, James takes a fourth, but it could be under threat from the penalty. Mark takes fifth, Craig will take sixth, Gary will take seventh sideways. Actually, Rob will take seventh, Gary will take eighth, Sam will take ninth, and then further down we've got Darren and Tom having a fight, and Darren takes it ahead of Tom in 11th, with Harry, who finishes unfortunately at the back of the grid. Here's Harry having a race on his own, really struggled with the hards, but at least it's a finish and you'll get a few points from there. Let's take a look at the results for race 2 at Nurburgring. The win then was taken by Mike Kuipers, his first of the series ever, so a great win there for Mike. In second was Josh, third was Kieran, James takes a good fourth, but it could be under threat because of the penalties. Mark is fifth, Craig took sixth, Rob was seventh, Gary took eighth, ahead of Sam, Darren, Tom and Harry, who finishes at the back. So what this means for the points then in the driver's title overall, Craig is going way ahead with 78 points, and now Mike is in second position after that win with 67. Darren is third with 65, Sam is fourth with 63, fifth is Josh with 58, sixth is Mark with 56, seventh is Harry with 50, Kieran is now 8th with 48, with Tom on 46 and 9th, 10th is Rob with 39, 11th is James with 25 after his 4th position there, Gary goes down to 12th with just 17, and obviously Shane still hasn't scored a single point yet. In the teams then is a big change, but only by just 1 point then. Elliott Racing are now leading by 1 point at 148, ahead of Parker with 147, and K-Tech still a little work to do with 115. In the independents, it is Mike who goes into the lead with 87, there's no surprise there. Mark is second with 78, with Harry actually joint with Harry in third on 78. Fourth is Josh with 72, fifth is Gary with 26, just 1 point ahead of James in sixth.